It's time for me to move away from the game of basketball.
Westbrook stops at the one and goes down to a knee.
Bitter labor dispute caused the cancellation of the playoffs.
You don't know when he's going to be back. Two really serious concussions.
Hello, welcome back to How to Fantasy Sports. In today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to begin our look at the 2012 fantasy basketball season. Season that's going to start in a couple of weeks. So we thought we'd put out our draft strategy video for the upcoming 2012 fantasy basketball season. Now, with all of our draft strategy videos, we always begin with the same recommendation that you should know your league settings first. These league settings are very important and they differ from league to league, and they place emphasis on players differently depending on the categories that are being used to count in your league. So definitely spend some time going over the settings of your league to know what are the valuable categories for counting in your league. As always, count out the number of players that are going to be drafted in your league, so that way you have generally a good idea about the number of players that are going to be drafted, as well as the number of players at each position that are going to be drafted. If you're in an auction league, always spend the majority of your money on your starting lineup. Don't worry about spending a lot of money on your bench players, as you'll find that during the course of the season, injuries or maybe there's some hot free agents out there that you'll want to pick up, that your lineup will be very mendable. So don't worry about filling in or spending a lot of money on your bench players. Chances are they're not going to stick with you for the entire course of the season. And as always, never pay for last year's stats, whether they were good or bad. Always try to reassess each player new and fresh according to their career patterns. Now, this is obviously a little bit harder with players that have only been in the league 1 or 2 years, but try to get a good sense of how they perform over their career rather than how they did last year as a better guide for judging a player's worth coming into the season. Remember that when it comes to fantasy basketball, you're trying to win in particular categories, whether you're playing in a rotisserie league where you're trying to win a category for an entire year, or if you're in a head-to-head league where you're just trying to win a category against an opponent on a week-to-week basis. Either way, your goal is to win one more than half of the categories in your league. This is important to remember, especially when you're drafting, that if you find that you're not drafting in one particular category, don't worry about trying to draft that one. Let that category go and focus on all the other ones then that you're stronger in. You'll find that if you've missed a particular category halfway through your draft, there really aren't going to be a lot of great options for catching up in that category. And so it's not really worth your while trying to go out of your way to find a player to help you win in that category. So when it comes time for drafting, what are you looking for? Well, you're looking for guards and small forwards that are good at getting points, steals, assists, three-pointers, and the free throw percentages. And then when it comes to your power forwards and your centers, what you're looking for are points, rebounds, blocks, and a good shooting percentage. These types of players will really help give you a well-rounded team that will be competitive on any given week. Now, specifically in your draft, what will help you the most is if you get one of the first 2 draft positions in a snake draft, or if you invest heavily in Kevin Durant or LeBron James. Both of these players really do excel in a lot of categories, and they do put you at a pretty good statistical advantage. So hopefully if you're in a snake draft, you get one of the first 2 positions. We prefer LeBron James strictly because of the way that he dominates over Kevin Durant in terms of assists over the course of the season. We think they're fairly close or fairly comparable, that it's really hard to distinguish one from the other except on the assists alone, and we think that because of that we like LeBron James a little bit more than Kevin Durant. But after that, what you're going to try to do is you're going to draft a team of roughly about 10 players for your starting lineup, as we talked about earlier. And in that starting lineup, what you're going to want is about 4 point guards and 4 power forwards / centers. Now, hopefully they have dual eligibility. And then after that, you're going to round your team out with 1 shooting guard and 1 small forward. Now, hopefully those shooting guards and small forwards also have dual position eligibility, so that way you can move them around in your lineup to really maximize the amount of games played that you can have during the course of the season. Now, we recommend that you get 4 point guards for your team, as that will really give you a good statistical advantage in the assist category without hurting you in any of the other categories that you're counting on for a guard to contribute to. They do tend to go quite quickly in your draft, so you may have to draft maybe about 3 in the first 5 rounds of your draft, depending on how many players are participating in your league, and then look for another point guard sometime around round 7 or 8 of your draft. The shooting guard category isn't that deep of a category, and that's why we don't really recommend you drafting a lot of them. And more so, what you'd be looking for is trying to find a forward that has dual position eligibility, or a point guard that has dual eligibility position with the shooting guard position, as that'll help really maximize the number of games that you can play during the course of the season. Now, we recommend that you draft 4 power forwards or centers, and this is to really help you build up the number of rebounds and blockings that you're going to get from those players, and really give you a good statistical advantage in that category. Now, winning in the blocking category can actually be quite easy, because what you can do at the end of your draft is just draft a blocking specialist, someone who's going to get you maybe 2 or 3 blocks a game. And this will really give you a strong statistical advantage in the blocking category, especially if you're able to draft 4 power forwards and centers who also excel in those categories. And winning in the blocking category is just as important as winning in any of the other categories, in that they all count the same. But you have to work much harder to, say, win in a points category or win in the assist category, where you don't have to work as hard to win in the blocking category. So a great strategy with any draft is for your last player to be a blocking specialist. Now, as we talked about earlier, while you're going through your draft, if you find that you're missing one particular category, or if you're drafting some category killers like, say, Rajon Rondo, who doesn't excel in free throws, don't try to make up those numbers later in your draft. Once you've got past a lot of the really, really good players, say in the top 50 of your draft, then you're not really going to find a lot of value at the back end of your draft that's going to make worthwhile targeting rebuilding any one particular category. If you're losing in one particular category, just let it go and keep focusing on the categories that you are excelling at in your draft. And as always, don't be too afraid of drafting rookies. It's more important to focus on the opportunities that they have out there. If you've got a rookie who's going to be in a starting lineup, then he's got just as much opportunity to contribute during the course of a season as any of the other starters that are in the league. So give rookies a fair advantage if they are in the starting lineups. And that concludes our draft strategy video for the 2012 fantasy basketball season. We hope that you found some information useful here that you can use to better position yourself for your draft. If you have any questions, send us an email at question@howtofantasysports.com. Otherwise, subscribe to this channel to stay informed for our future videos. Upcoming soon will be our rankings of the positional players for the 2012 fantasy basketball season. Stay tuned.